This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy this show, as together we hear how they are making their world better. Well, everybody, and welcome to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. So today, I want to kick off this particular episode with letting you know that I'm going to give a gift to the first 3 people that sign up for my monthly email update. And all you have to do, you can go to my website. You can go to 2 different places, actually. Go to robharder.com, and you can subscribe there. Or you can also go to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast page and just put the subscribe, which is at the top right-hand corner. Subscribe, and you put your email. So either website, robharder.com or nonprofitleadershippodcast.com. It'll get you to the same spot when you just click on subscribe and put your email in there. And the first 3 people that sign up, I'm going to have a gift I'll send to you. And the reason I'm doing that is because today's topic is all about email marketing. Now, you may say, well, email marketing, that's been around forever. And it's true, it has. It's not necessarily new and fancy and shiny. However, study after study has shown that one of the most effective ways that you can communicate to your donors is through email marketing. I mean, the best way, of course, is a one-to-one in-person communication with your donors, a sit down, having coffee, having lunch, eyeball to eyeball, talking to one of your donors. And then also phones. Calling somebody on the phone is a very effective way. The problem now with phones, though, as you know, if you don't have the right number and someone calls through and you don't recognize the number, guess what? You don't answer the phone. So it's more and more difficult, I've found, to reach people on their phone unless you're very, very close to them, right? Because they won't pick it up. So texting is also an option. But again, a lot of people don't respond to text in the same way they do to email, particularly when you're giving a call to action. And so when you throw in social media, physical mail, snail mail marketing, one of the most effective ways still to this day is email marketing. And that's the whole topic of our conversation today. And I've got Jesse Lane back on the show. He was on the show about 6 years ago, and he was doing great work then. And he started his own company that really helps nonprofits with marketing, specifically called Good Maker U. And so Jesse's going to share about this and why they found email to be so effective and how to make sure you can continue to make your email engagement rate and response rate really, really high. And then, of course, we're going to have to talk about AI and the role of AI in marketing and AI in general to use for your nonprofit. So a lot of good things that are really practical that'll help you. As always, thanks for tuning in. Now on to the show. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business. Welcome to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. I've got a guest back on the show. Jesse was on the show 6 years ago, if you can believe it. I've been doing this show for almost 8 years now. So Jesse, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here again. It's going to be fun.
I know, it's just fun. And we were talking before we hit record. It's fun to see people that are still in the space, still working hard in the nonprofit space to help people really, make their missions go. And we're going to narrow our focus today because there's so many things we could talk about when it comes to the nonprofit leadership space. But we're going to talk about marketing. And so maybe to kick things off, Jesse, give us a sense from your perspective. Give us the state of marketing right now when it comes to nonprofits, because there's a lot. And we're going to, of course, narrow a bit of our focus today, but maybe start with that. Give us your sense of how things are going, what you're learning in the marketing space.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to sum it up because it's like the wild, wild west. Things are changing so fast. They've been changing rapidly ever since I've been in this space, right? But it is faster than ever with AI. And just, I think that, we're all just kind of holding on tight, trying to, cling to the principles that we know won't ever change, just that relationships matter and, storytelling, these things, because in a world where the tech is constantly changing, how we communicate, how we even produce content, all of that is constantly evolving faster than we can keep up with. It's one of those things that you have to kind of lean back on the principles that are true and are human and aren't changing. So I would say, that's been my advice in this last couple of years as we've seen, AI come onto the scene and we've seen marketing really change a lot. And I think, there's a lot I could say about that, but that would be my quick summary.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, and I've had so many guests on the show recently talking about AI and the use of AI. And I found that a lot of nonprofits that do utilize AI, it's in the marketing space. That's a big area where they find great benefit because of the efficiency and the speed by which AI can do a lot of things. So let's maybe go into, though, specifically about the marketing and when it comes to email marketing, because I've had people also talk about marketing. Email marketing is still one of the most effective things you can do in your nonprofit organization. So maybe let's start about that. What's some of the biggest mistakes that nonprofits make when it comes to email marketing? Let's start there.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. We see that oftentimes it just starts with the wrong mindset around email, right? Often nonprofits neglect it altogether, or they just don't value email because it's maybe not the newest shiny thing. Email's been around a while, or, they don't love opening their inbox because they get so many emails. And so they use that to decide, oh, we're not going to really think about email or worry about email too much, which is a huge mistake because study after study, even recent studies in 2024 are saying that email is still a very effective digital fundraising tool and engagement tool. So it works. And I think so the mindset at first, just if you're one of those people that are just kind of writing it off because you're not a big fan of email, well, maybe look at some of the data and try, reconsider email as a really key strategy in the digital fundraising and marketing space. And then also just, we see this, and it comes from a good heart, but a lot of nonprofits, they don't want to be a spammer,
Yeah, exactly.
And so we talk a lot about good makers. I know that you've had some conversations around the name nonprofit and the brand nonprofit, which I love that conversation. Yep. Well, for years now, we've been calling nonprofit leaders good makers, and we built our whole brand, Good Maker U, around that because it speaks identity into a nonprofit leader. So we have our students often say out loud, I am not a spammer, I am a good maker.
I like that.
And it's like, you need to remember that you're not bugging people, annoying people. If they're on your email list, they've given you permission, they want to hear from you, and you're out there changing the world. You're a good guy. You're not a spammer. And you should not hesitate to communicate and speak into and show up in the inbox. Right. Because everyone else is. You better believe all of the for-profit businesses out there are competing for that space. So you might as well join with the good work you're doing and jump into that. So that mindset of being afraid to bother people or afraid to send too much often keeps people under communicating in email and not really valuing it fully for what it could be. So those are a couple of the mistakes. There's other more practical things I can get into, but those, that starts with that mindset and just helping people see email has a place today, and it really can be an effective way to get results and motivate people to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we get to specifics now, how do you strike a balance between, on the one hand, having a straight up fundraising email with another email that maybe has more content that provides more information for donors? Where do you strike that balance? How often do you have a little bit more of a meaty email, if you will, and then a straight up ask for an urgent thing going on? I know it's year-end giving by the time this airs. It'll be year-end giving time for nonprofits. And so there's often an urgency you want to create with your emails when you're asking for money. But tell us what you found when it comes to finding that balance with your emails.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we are going to recommend an 80-20 split where you're giving 80% value, just know your audience, know what they want from your email, what they actually are excited to open and read and see. So that's probably storytelling, maybe educational content, serving your audience, bringing value to the inbox. That 80% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean those don't have a call to action, but it's not all about that. Maybe the call to action is to watch a video or to, go follow you on social media or read the full story on the website. But there's another 20% where you are not shy about an appeal or an invitation to take action, to give, to volunteer. And so in both cases, there's value. You're bringing value even with that invitation. You're inviting them into a bigger story, and you shouldn't shy away from that. And so we kind of recommend an 80-20 split. And of course, during an end of year season, that flips. A lot of those emails are going to, like 80% of your December emails should probably be with a strong call to action worked in. And that doesn't mean you don't have stories or you're sharing about the impact, but you are making a clear call to action because people are ready to give. It's time. And you want to be on the top of their mind when it comes to the end of your gift. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we'd recommend. Obviously, during a campaign of any kind, you're going to ramp up that communication and those asks. But for the most part throughout the year, bring value, earn the right to for people to keep opening and keep reading those emails so that when the fundraising campaign comes around, they're paying attention, they're engaged, and they're ready to respond.
Yeah, they're not hitting delete on your email as it comes to their inbox.
That's right.
Well, and we've already mentioned this earlier, but just for my listeners, again, just to soak this in, like you said, email seems so like yesterday, like everyone's an email. It's so common. Maybe you're tired of getting all these emails in your own inbox. However, you mentioned it, but I'll just highlight it again. Study after study does show email marketing is still one of the most effective ways that you can communicate to your donors, to your community, more than social media often. Certainly snail mail, physical mail. Email is still one of the best ways. Now, the only better way would be, of course, a one-on-one in-person conversation with a donor. That's the best, of course, but that can be really difficult, particularly as your organization gets bigger and you start having thousands of donors supporting you. That's almost impossible, no matter how big of a development team you have. So talk a little bit more about why that's so effective, why it's come through that study after study shows that email marketing is so important. What have you found as you dug into the data a bit more? Why is this working so well? Why is this the best form of communication overall?
You're 100% right, Rob. There's other than a face-to-face conversation, which you have limited time, right? So you can only do so many of those. You can only call so many, you can only meet with so many donors. So email scales, right? And so I think the two things I would say is one, it's low cost. It's a higher ROI because the cost is low. And so as you grow your email list, as you're effective in your communication, your engagement rate is high, you've got people paying attention, you can reach a lot of people at a low cost. It does take time, but there isn't a huge expense there. You also own that list. You're not having to worry about the algorithm changes, right? Or
that's a good point.
Social media trends and what comes and goes. That's your list. And you can communicate with those people that have subscribed. And so those are some big factors. The other one I would say, and this really helps differentiate social media and email, and which I believe social media can be great for engagement or storytelling or, staying on, having fun and expressing your personality. But email is often where we see much better action, like causing people to actually pull the trigger and make the gift or respond in some way. In social media, we just don't see the same conversion rates to action. And I believe it's because we're in a different headspace when we're in social media than when we're in email. Like when you're in social media, wanting to kick back and just not think about anything, just swipe through, scroll through different posts and just kind of take a brain break, right? Nothing too serious. Sometimes it's too serious for me. I just, I don't want to see this or that. But it's like social media is not a time where we're really in business mode, I would say. We're not really taking action as often. Versus think about this, when we are doing business, we're often in our inboxes, we're in our email. So that could be like, we're booking an appointment and we're getting a confirmation email. We're getting a receipt. We're often pulling out our credit card. There's a reason that people in their inbox are in the mode and ready to like take action, get serious, maybe click over. Maybe they're spending more time on a desktop and it's even easier for them to go through and make that gift. So that's one of my hypotheses of why we see this. But regardless of why, the fact is research study after research study shows that there's a greater ROI and response rate in email than compared to social media, at least. And we see that too. I mean, client after client, we get incredible results through our email campaigns where social has a part to play, but it's not usually driving the same type of fundraising results.
When you talked about that, it reminds me, I was listening to someone who's in the space, maybe people know her, and she's very much in the nonprofit marketing space and has her own company. She was just talking about how when she decided to get off of Twitter, now X, she had about 9,000 followers at the time. And when she closed her account and moved, she couldn't take them with her. those were not hers, so to speak. They were still on the platform, right? So going back to one of the things I thought was so important, you said you own that email list. That's your list. And so it's yours. It goes with you. Wherever you go, you have that list. And I think that's really powerful. But number two, I think you're so right. You nailed it with converting people to reading to action. That social media just doesn't do that. I've read the same studies that people, you're right, they're just scrolling. They're kind of in this mode of taking a break. They're not looking to take a step per se. Whereas an email, you're much better chance they're going to read it and say, oh, I am going to click on that. Oh, okay, maybe I will give. This is great. I love the cause. Love the video that you just sent or whatever. So think for my listeners again, what you want with your emails, right, is that turn to action. You want people to read it and actually do something and not just be wowed by the great email. And so with that in mind, how can nonprofits increase their email engagement and increase their open rates?
Great question. We have like a whole YouTube video series on this, but I'll just keep it short and say this. We mix it up. Like people tend to get in these ruts where every email sounds the same, looks the same. And we, as consumers, as donors, we start to just file those emails away. Like we see them, we just kind of know, we think we know what they're going to be. And so there's no need to really open or read it because it's kind of like, oh, it's the same old, right? And so that's one thing, just mix up, send it from different from lines. It doesn't always have to be from your organizational name or even your executive director or CEO. Like send it from different people at the team with a different design format, different type of subject line, some short, some long. Just variety keeps people paying attention, right? And I'm all for consistency too. And there's a place for that. But every once in a while, try mixing it up and see how that affects your engagement rates. And then I would also say just simplify. One of the common mistakes we see is organizations doing a newsletter, right? Like a monthly newsletter where they put everything in there, it's like the junk drawer for email, right? It's like everything just goes in there. Well, let's tell them about this and this. And some volunteer opportunities. We should tell them about this upcoming event and fundraising campaign. And we've got some jobs. We should put that in there. And so people open the emails, and it's just like all these information. It's overwhelming for people. And so it's really, they don't know what you want them to do. So they're overwhelmed. They don't really have time to probably read all of that, and it's just, you're making them think and work too hard. Right. So I would say turn that, if you've got like 5 things in that email, turn that email into 5 different emails, right? Break it up into that and make every email about one thing, primarily one thing. It should be really obvious what the email is about and what you want them to do next. And if it's not, good luck getting them to actually click or take an action. Right. And so just simplify, which actually makes your job easier because you can just focus your email on that one thing and really, drive action through that. So those are a couple thoughts. I would also say, use automation. So many nonprofits aren't taking advantage of that. And so, for instance, use a new subscriber welcome series to help welcome people with a great first few emails so they know that, wow, the emails I get from this nonprofit are awesome. I want to keep opening them. Share your best stories, your best content, and really make a good first impression. You're setting them up to say, okay, when I get an email from them, I'm going to open it because it's going to be great content. And you can automate that and set it on repeat to really give them a great experience. And just a freebie out there on our website, if you go to goodmakeru.com/welcome, we've got a kit or like a guide that can show you the 8 emails that we'd recommend including in that. But it's just super important because you're setting that first impression and they're kind of deciding how they're going to follow your emails. Are they going to delete them or archive them? Or are they actually going to take a moment and open them? And those first few emails are critical. And so if you want to automate those to be a great experience, build that welcome series and make it really some of your best content.
We'll be right back. Are you looking for an easy and effective way to boost your nonprofit's donations? Well, look no further than DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your fundraising efforts, maximizes donations, and simplifies giving for your supporters. With DonorBox, you can create beautiful donation forms, accept digital wallet payments, track donations, and send auto receipts. And the best part? There are no setup or monthly fees and no long-term contracts required. So what are you waiting for? Visit donorbox.org today to get started. That is www.donorbox.org. Hey friends, thanks so much for listening to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. Many of you know that I provide leadership and life coaching. With my 30 years of nonprofit experience, I know firsthand how hard leaders like you work. I also know how important it is to have someone you can call on and to get help with the barriers and leadership challenges you will face both professionally and personally. I really want to help people thrive and become all they were meant to become by providing coaching and consulting services. And it's been so much fun working as a coach, working with clients who are leaders just like you, looking to grow personally and professionally. What you may not know is that I also provide consulting services. Currently, in fact, I'm working with an organization to help them create a clear strategy and plan to raise $3.5 million to expand their organization. So perhaps you're an executive director and you sense your organization has hit a lid on growth, and you need a strategy as to how you can scale your nonprofit. Or perhaps the culture you set out to create is not the culture you have currently, and it's impacting your staff retention. Or maybe you're facing a major resource challenge and you don't know what to do. That's where I can help. I come alongside leaders and organizations to create strategies to grow their organizations and maximize their impact. If your nonprofit needs help with fundraising, strategy, or operational effectiveness, reach out today. You can simply email me at rob@robharder.com. You can go to my website, robharder.com, or you can call me, 435-776-5173. I would be happy to provide a free sample coaching session or a consult to see how I can best be of help to you and your organization. Well, thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. I love that idea of the automation piece to it. I think there's so many, that's a good use of AI, number one, but also just a real practical way of saving a lot of time and energy and effort and really impressing people right off the bat. So well said on that. Now we're going to get to AI in just a second, but before we do that, let's talk about segmenting donor lists, tailoring emails for specific groups or specific donors. I know a lot of people do that. And again, as you get larger and maybe as you more programs in your nonprofit, you're going to do that more. And speaking of AI, I know a lot of people utilize AI for this exact purpose because it speeds up the process, makes it super efficient. But let's just start maybe with a practical way of how and why should you do that. And if a nonprofit's listening and like, okay, maybe I should segment these emails, what are the first steps they should take to do that and to do it well and really effectively?
Yeah, I mean, so the why behind it is it's going to give someone an email that's more relevant. I mean, you're able to customize and tailor the content to something about that list, that segment that is going to speak to them at another level. So you're able to make it more personal, more relevant for them based on a lot of different factors in the data that you have. And so that's going to just make your emails really pop and stand out in the inbox because you're speaking to them in a way that maybe a lot of others aren't. And it feels highly relevant, and that's going to grab their attention and make them more likely to engage and take action. So segmentation is really great strategy. Now, to your next question, where do you start if you're starting to segment? I would say, look at the data that you have on your audience, and look at, if you know their interests, maybe how they joined your list, if it was a certain event or a campaign. You can also segment on giving level. How much have they given? What's their capacity to give? And a lot of tools using AI or donor data, they're going to be able to actually kind of give you a score, either like an engagement score based on how they've engaged in the past, or potentially a wealth score or a capacity to give score. And all of those, if you have access to that in your tools, that's a great way to segment your list. And I would just encourage you to try it out. Try those segments out, test some things, and just see. But one just basic example is we're working with a client on the end of year campaign, and we've got one segment where the giving handles, which is what we call the dollar amounts that we're suggesting to people for we have two different segments. One, they're getting larger numbers to be invited to give based on their giving history, and these are kind of mid-level donors. And then we've got another email that's pretty similar, but the dollar amounts are different. And that's going to go to anybody that's giving at the broad-based level. And then, major donors are going to get a personal invitation and personal custom email. So we've got really three segments there, all getting similar message with a different call to action based on their capacity to give. So it's a pretty simple way, but that's a great place to start, is just segmenting based on their capacity to give and their giving history.
No, very good information. No, very helpful. And okay, let's dive into AI now. Again, we've talked quite a bit about this with different guests on the show. This is an area I do think people start utilizing AI, as I mentioned before, with marketing, fundraising, things like that, things that are tasks that can be just sped up through AI. What is the role, though? We'll back up a little bit. What's the role in your mind of utilizing AI for nonprofits, especially when it comes to marketing, but in general, like how can you use AI for good for a nonprofit organization?
Yeah. Well, that's a huge question, right? I mean, there's a long list of things, but I would just to zero in on marketing and I would say email and content creation. I would say, train the AI that you're working with on your voice and on your target audience. And over time, you're able to really hone in on a really powerful, accurate representation of you. But, still, I would say, make sure that that it feels like a human touch and you're adding that layer of a human to everything you create, and these days, at least, you can usually still tell the difference. And it depends on the tools you're using and how well the prompt is architected, right? But I would say that my recommendation is use it in the brainstorming process, coming up with ideas. Sometimes that can take a while, brainstorming all these content ideas or different angles. But with AI, they can, just give you a list of ideas just to get you started. There may be some really bad ones on there, but you could get some good ideas. And then, and then if you want, you can use AI to start a first draft of your emails, and then you can edit within that. I've been using Canvas, which is a new version of ChatGPT. You can edit it right there in ChatGPT to tweak it, and it makes it really, really easy to kind of edit and refine and work back and forth with the AI. And it's just a really powerful tool. So I would encourage everybody to just be experimenting and learning because it is changing rapidly. But, there's a lot of things to consider with AI. I would recommend just thinking about the policies of your organization and making sure that you're thinking through the implications of using it, but also that you're just not left behind, afraid to engage completely. Yep. And so with marketing, it's a great place to get ideation, get first drafts, or, if you write something and you're like, man, I know this is too long, ask AI to help you shorten it, and tighten it up. And that's usually going to be pretty easy, which is hard for a human, easy often for AI.
You're right. No feelings with AI. They just cut it. It's trim it.
Yeah. Cut. Yeah.
Well, good. I like that. And whether you use the AI or not, one of the key things with email, you already kind of alluded to it, is making sure it's personal. And I think you said, train it in the voice of your nonprofit or your executive director, whoever's writing the email. You want it to truly be a real voice, right? Where people read it, feels like it's a personal email right to them. Talk a bit more about how to do that well. You touched on it a little bit, but I do think this gets more challenging, particularly as you get a larger and larger list, to do that well consistently, where people don't think, oh, this is just a automated email. It's really obvious the way it came through, that it really wasn't from the executive director or CEO of the organization. So how do you do that well? And then if, say, you do use AI, sounds like that it really is a training process with your AI, but maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I would say to make your emails feel personal, which is a critical, principle in any marketing. But I would say just some simple things to get you started with, using their first name in the email is going to stand out. So hopefully you're collecting first names. That's to me, it's the very next thing after email. I'm always going to be collecting first names because it allows you to personalize your communication. And then just using a real personal, friendly tone. Yeah. It seems that nonprofits often want to communicate real formally, or, they know in their emails to the masses. And it's as if they're writing for a board report or a foundation, an application. And it's like, well, people don't want to read that. They want it to feel more conversational, right? As if, right the way you're talking. And if you're using AI, you have to kind of guide it to do that, because often AI is going to start with a more formal tone as well. So you really have to kind of tell it to write that way. And then send it, from a person, not a brand, and make sure that there's, those human pieces that are maybe, everything's not so polished and perfect. And that's something you definitely have to be careful with AI. It's almost too good. Like everything feels so
Right.
neat and perfect. And so often like what I'll do is come in and after I'm working with an AI, like email or copy, I'm going to come in and add in some expressions that like I would write or this person would write, some real short sentences or, just the right emoji or like, some different formatting that's just going to kind of be that human layer on top of it to help, connect with people.
Yep.
I think also one of the best things you can do, we have an email kind of framework or template that we recommend that we call it the best email ever. And that's just because our clients just keep calling it that. They were like, this was the best email I've ever sent. And it's just really simple. You strip it down, take off all the logos, all the images, everything, all the formatting, no background colors, nothing.
Okay.
And just write that text only email, and it outperforms all of those beautiful HTML designed, templates that you have. And we actually have a step-by-step guide for this as well. If you want to download it, it's a GoodMakerU. Huh. Yeah. It's you can download it at goodmakeru.com/best. But if you go through that, you'll see we're like, this is what your friends do when they write you an email, right?
Good point.
And they're not gonna like put graphics and design. They're just gonna write you an email and send it. They're more casual. They're more shorter emails. Mm-hmm. And often, if you write your email similar to like you would to a friend or a coworker, people are gonna it's gonna go into a different file in their brain. And even if they know, it was sent to the masses, they're going to stop and engage with it and read it because it's going to stand out from all the other emails. It's actually a lot easier to do, and It works better. So we recommend mixing this in maybe 25 to 30% of the time with your emails, sending an email like this, text only from a person, stripped down. And our clients get amazing results when they do this. They're always shocked at the response. And so, I would recommend people try it out and then just email me and let me know how it goes, because it's always fun to get those stories in.
That is so fascinating. You're one of the first ones that has mentioned that, but it makes sense. It's like, how would you email your friend? Yeah, you don't add all this great graphics behind it and put a bunch of pictures and just respond, right? And it's very personal, it's casual, really good mindset. I think that's an interesting way to go about it. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it works.
Yeah. Obviously, you've seen the results. That actually does work. That's awesome. Okay, so small nonprofits that are just starting out with email marketing, they maybe have small budget. What's the best bang for their buck, so to speak, when it comes to launching a really effective email marketing campaign for their organization? Where would they start?
Yeah. Well, there's two things I would recommend if they're just getting started. One is just set a consistent email rhythm that you can keep. Don't try to send daily emails. It's just not going to happen, right? Yeah. And if you have hardly any subscribers, then it's not worth your time to send that many emails. And so, probably start with once a month and then build up to every other week. And eventually we love to recommend weekly emails. Yeah. But, when you only have 20 subscribers, it's really probably not worth your time to send a weekly email. So that would be my first thing, is set that rhythm and build a habit, build a process. And sometimes that takes a while, but build that habit and that process in your team of the content creation and just getting comfortable hitting send consistently. And sometimes that's a new routine for people, and they've been used to sending emails, never, or like once every, 3 or 4 months, and it's, very sporadic. And so it takes a little bit of work to create that new habit, but it's really valuable over time. And then the next thing I would say is, if you're just starting out, you want to build your list as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, because you're going to be doing that work every week or every month to get the email out. You might as well have more people receiving it. And so I would say, just take the mindset of always be collecting emails, in every opportunity you can. Be growing your email list. Set that in your scorecard for the year, and set goals for monthly growth on your email list. Be asking your friends, and every event, every volunteer, everybody should be added to your email list, because as you scale that email list over time, that is an asset that's growing and growing, and it doesn't cost you anything. You're going to be sending those emails anyway. And you just want to get that list as large as possible. So just be looking for every opportunity. And like I said, events, volunteer opportunities, donors, All of those are great people to start adding to your email list as you get the permission, and have giveaways and promote it on social media, and just be always looking for an opportunity. And then the last thing I would say is a way to like supercharge that growth is to offer what we call a lead magnet, which is just a really valuable reason to join your email list. So you see it all the time, download this PDF or get this kit. I mean, we've got lead magnets that I'm sharing right now on, the podcast. It's just a great way to offer something valuable in exchange for someone to join your email list. And it gives them a taste of the kind of great value that you can bring. So for a nonprofit, it could be a fun quiz or an educational PDF or, something that's over and above just like getting updates, right? Yep. And often that's what I see on the website. They're like, sign up for our email list to get updates. And it's like, well, I'm not super excited about getting updates. But if you're going to give me something like a free chapter of a book or a PDF or something, okay, maybe I'm more excited to join your email list at that point. And so that kind of thing is going to increase your conversion rate and get more people joining your email list faster.
Let's drill down that a little bit more. I think you're already giving some good ideas, but yeah, if you're a small nonprofit and you're trying to just gather names at the very beginning, what are some of those ways to do it? Is it seminars? Is it, you mentioned social media, maybe talk about a few more ways just to gather them in the first place. And then like I said, then you can maximize that list as you start building it. But what's the very beginning building blocks of somebody who's really doesn't have many people outside of their immediate team?
Yeah. Well, I would say, it kind of sounds funny, but start grassroots, like friends, family, like staff, former staff, volunteers. Like, if you, set yourself a milestone, if you've got 0 subscribers, be like, I'm going to get to that 50 subscribers, and I'm just anybody and everybody, and that'll get you some momentum and like give you a little bit of like, okay, these emails actually are being read and people are seeing them, and it's a good place to start, right? And then some practice runs with the friendly people that already love you, and they're not going to unsubscribe because they're your mom.
Exactly. Always good.
That's a good place to start. And then I would say, go into any opportunity where you're reaching an audience. So whether that's an event or if you're setting up a booth at a farmer's market, give something away in exchange for that email address. So, have a fun giveaway where, everybody that joins the email list is going to be entered to win this gift basket or this free iPad or, you've seen all of that. That's a smart strategy because people are like, sure, I'll join. And then you're growing your list. One person gets a freebie and the rest just join your list. And then you got a chance now to earn their keep and keep them on by giving great content and delivering, valuable emails. So I would say, look for those opportunities. And then, you can use social media ads or influencers to really reach larger audiences. So that's kind of that next layer. And when we're looking to grow our clients' email lists by tens of thousands, we're going to be running, ad campaigns. We're going to be partnering with influencers that are relevant to their cause. And we're going to be, still using lead magnets, but promoting it to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people through those channels and growing the list a lot faster that way. But I would say start small, grassroots, get those people in your circles. And then as you kind of get some momentum, then maybe look to the bigger opportunities out there.
Okay. No, very helpful. Okay. So you already talked about having that stripped down email where it's literally just like a friend to a friend email with no frills, no images. So we got that. And that's really good. I think that's a great, takeaway for my listeners. But let's get back to those emails that you do want to design. You want to have a good format. You want to have something that grabs their attention. Maybe that could be one of the last questions I ask is what are some of the secrets for formatting and design improvements in order to get, again, better email engagement at the end of the day?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd definitely say start with that text only email. You'll be shocked at how well that'll work. Mm-hmm. But then if in those designed emails, I would say, keep a couple of quick things, just real practical, keep your header graphic. You're going to have like a banner or a logo. Don't make it too tall. You don't want people to have to scroll to read any part of your email, right? Yeah. So some people will design this beautiful graphic and it'll basically be all that you see when you open the email. Right. So then that's forcing people to scroll to actually see what's in the email. And that's a little too much friction, right? And for some people. So you want to kind of get stuff above the fold, if you will, and make it so that they're seeing kind of the hook or the headline right out of the gate. And it's not to say you can't have a header graphic, but get to that point as soon as possible. And I would say some people clutter up the header with things like, it's pretty common in these templates to see like, view this email in your browser and, forward this to a friend and follow us on social media. And I'm like, none of those things are the priority, but yet that's the first thing people see. So I would bury all that at the bottom or get rid of it altogether. And you just think about like, what do you want people to see first and foremost? And when they open that email, because people are moving fast. I think it's on average, they spend about 5 seconds with each email that they open. So I mean, you don't have much time. You got to get people to like get hooked with a great headline or something that grabs their attention. And so, as far as formatting, I would say I like the one column email, something that's going to be responsive and look good in mobile and on a desktop, because more people are probably going to read your email on their phones than they will on a computer. It's probably 60 to 70% on phone. So because of that, if not higher, you've got to make sure every email looks great on your phone. And if you start designing graphics, they may look good on a computer, but then on a phone, you can't read it. It's too small. And so be sure you're designing for mobile and just something that looks great on both. And then I would say always try to keep your calls to action focused. Like I said earlier, you don't want to have 4 or 5 different calls to action. I would say one call to action is ideal. That doesn't mean it's only one link. It could be several links all going to the same place. Right. So whether those are hyperlinks or buttons, you want to reinforce throughout the email, this is the next step. This is, this one thing is the next step that you should take, and kind of reinforce that throughout the email versus like saying, you could go read this thing. Oh, you could go watch this video, or you could go follow us here. And then they're pulled all different places. And so you don't want that.
Yeah, no, well said. I know, I think something I ran across when I was doing my marketing was something like now, it's about 75% of people read their emails on their phone. And so the whole push for mobile friendly emails, so critical. And I just, anecdotally, most of our folks that get our emails at the nonprofit that I lead, absolutely, they get on their phone first. Now, if they're interested, they'll look online, they go to their computer and then they may get more information. But if it's not the same and it doesn't look sharp on their phone, they're just going to delete it on their phone and they'll delete it on their email, on their computer. So really well said. And I think that's right on. Well, such a fun conversation. I knew we'd cover a lot of ground. For my listeners who want to learn a little bit more about you, learn more about Goodmaker U, as well as the Mission Lab or the Branches Mission Lab, where would you send them? How can they connect with you and learn more about your organization?
Sure. Yeah. So goodmakeru.com. We do all kinds of training cohorts, virtual across the country, where we have a program called the Fundraising Masterclass, where it's a 60-day class where we're taking people through. Often people are seeing their fundraising campaigns grow by 7 to 10 times, like on average. That's what we're seeing. So if you've got a campaign coming up, maybe consider joining in with us. We also have, like you mentioned, Branches Mission Lab. That's our creative and marketing agency. So if you just need some help, maybe a rebrand or someone to write the emails for you because you're overwhelmed by all of this, we'll do it for you, and that's our agency team. So we have a team of creatives that are world-class nonprofit fundraising experts and marketing experts that will just do it for you if you don't have the time. So we'll either train you with Goodmaker U at goodmakeru.com, or we'll do the work for you. And you can find out more at brancheslab.com about our agency. So we'd love to connect and help out in any way we can.
That's awesome. Well, Jesse, again, great to have you on the show again. It's been a long time, and thanks for all you're doing for the nonprofit sector.
Absolutely. I love serving Goodmakers because they're out there serving the world and making, our community stronger. So thanks for all that you're doing, Rob. And it's just really fun to reconnect. I appreciate it.
Hey, friends. Well, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to other podcasts. I also want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with others. This will actually help us get this great content out to more nonprofit leaders just like you. You can also join the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast community, find other resources and interviews of past guests, all on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep making your world better. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business.